Looking for ways to optimize your work and personal life? Ray Dalio's book Principles, Life and Work is the #1 New York Times bestseller about how to build a successful business, career, or life. It contains powerful truths that will transform your understanding of yourself and society, along with practical advice on how to apply those lessons in everyday life. By following Ray's principles in this book, you can gain clarity about what matters most so you can make better decisions, both personally and professionally. With an abundance of useful advice, it shows readers the meaning behind actions that create positive outcomes like improved communication, relationships, and success at work or home. Let's explore all the main ideas of the book Principles by Ray Dalio in this animated book summary. Idea 1. Accept reality and know how to deal with it. Ray Dalio, who is a hyperrealist, says that a healthy dose of realism is the key to a happy and fulfilling life. So he has spent his whole life trying to find out what really matters. His life philosophy, which is based on being grounded in reality, may turn off people who believe that dreaming is an important part of being human. When done in its purest form, hyperrealism helps dream interpretation by making it clear which parts are real and which are made up. When you combine hope with reality, it's easy to connect your hopes to the many laws of the universe and make them come true. In other words, Ray Dalio's most basic premise is that the way to get good results is to look for the truth in one's realities. Here, he talked about how he had spent his whole life trying to figure out the natural world. In the end, he decides what is right and wrong in his daily life, based on the unconventional standards of nature. Even though his life philosophy is based on facts, it doesn't do much to convince people that dreaming is an important part of being happy. Idea 2. The decisions you make now will have a direct effect on your life tomorrow. To reach any goal, you have to make a series of choices. When trying for something, people often have to make decisions that could either help them get closer to their goal or move them farther away from it. Every choice you make has effects, and the quality of your life in the future depends on the choices you make today. Here are 5 things you should keep in mind when making good decisions. The first step towards success is to decide that you will never again let anything get in the way of your goals. Taking a cue from the theory of evolution, the people who survive in a species are the ones who learn to see their weaknesses as opportunities, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable. Thinking about what hurts can help you move on to the next part of your life, because when you're in pain, you're on the verge of creating new opportunities that once seemed impossible. Second, your ability to accept hard facts is a strength that will help you make good decisions. On the other hand, people who avoid facing reality tend to make bad decisions. Lastly, people who care a lot about what other people think tend to hide their flaws. People who do this make hasty decisions in all parts of their lives. On the contrary, successful people don't mind admitting when they don't know the answer. Instead, they realize when they need more information or help. When thinking about the results of their actions, people who put more importance on the first order of results than on the second or third order are more likely to be led astray. People who focus too much on how uncomfortable they are while exercising will miss out on the benefits to their health and appearance that come from the effort. Fifth, people who blame their problems on things outside of themselves aren't in touch with reality. People like these would rather point the finger at others than look at their own flaws, ignoring the most basic parts of success. Once you know what the most important decisions are, you can start putting in place the right plan and structure to reach your goals. The goals to be reached determine the strategies to use and the team members to use them. If you are enjoying this animated book summary, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, make sure you check our app Morfosis after the video. We have more animated book summaries on our app. Click the link in the description to get a 7-day free trial. Idea 3. Think on your own. Dalio tells the story of how he started the Bridgewater Associates hedge fund, including the successes and failures that helped shape his ideas. In the first part of this guide, we go into more detail about the basics, important ideas, and important references of his ideas in life. Dalio was the only child of his father, a jazz musician, and his mother, a housewife. His birthday is 1949. He was always a bit of a rebel, and the fact that he never liked school because he didn't like to memorize and follow rules shows that. But when it came to what he was really interested in, he was very focused. When he was 12, he tried the stock market for the first time. When his money tripled during a bull market, he was hooked. After reading the annual reports of public companies, he kept buying more stocks. Dalio's independent nature worked well in college, where he could choose which classes to take. In 1971, he got his bachelor's degree in finance from CW Coast. He did so well there that he was accepted to Harvard Business School. Dalio became very interested in commodities while he was at Harvard. After getting his MBA, he started trading commodities for a brokerage firm and his own account. He was fired for being too careless. He admits to punching his boss in the face. And in 1975, he started Bridgewater Associates. Bridgewater started trading on behalf of his clients after teaching them how to deal with market risks. He kept a portion of the profits for himself. Dalio was able to bet against what most people thought because he was able to think for himself. In the late 1970s, the economy was unstable, but Dalio was sure that it was headed for a depression. He told the customers, and based on what they said, he changed Bridgewater's investment strategy. At first, it looked like he was right on the mark. The Fed's actions, on the other hand, helped the market recover, showing that Dalio was wrong. After losing almost everything, he had to fire all of his workers and borrow money from his father just to get by. Idea 4. Learn from mistakes. Dalio thinks that his failures were a good thing because they showed him 4 mistakes that he could learn from. First of all, he made a mistake by letting his feelings get the best of him. He knew that his feelings made him make quick decisions in the moment. Because of this, he learned to put logical considerations ahead of gut feelings. Second, he made the mistake of thinking too highly of himself. He was so sure that his predictions about the economy were right until a recent event gave him a healthy fear of being wrong. So instead of thinking, "I know I'm right," he started to think, "How do I know I'm right? Tell me what I'm not seeing." After he carefully looked at his knowledge and how he made decisions, he became very interested in why other smart people didn't agree with him. He learned to talk to many different people before deciding what to do. Third, and most importantly, he didn't look into the past enough, which was his biggest mistake. Dalio would have learned that recessions aren't always inevitable if he had looked further back in economic history than just his own lifetime. He swore that he would keep track of the world's most important markets and economies for a few hundred years, so that he could come up with a set of universal truths that could be used anywhere. Fourth, he had the wrong idea that he had to invest everything or nothing at all. Dalio thought that he had 2 choices: take a big risk with a big payoff or take a small risk with a small payoff. He eventually realized that the best choice isn't always the most obvious one, but rather the one he didn't expect to be the best. When he heard this, it completely changed how he thought about investing. Dalio and his team figured out that by diversifying their investments in the right way, they could reduce their exposure to risk without losing money. Diversification was usually thought of as spreading your money across multiple assets in the same asset class. For example, you could spread your money across 100 stocks instead of just one, or you could invest in more than one commodity instead of just one. As a whole, the asset class went up and down, but most of the investments within it did the same thing. Bridgewater found that the trick is to have assets that have nothing to do with each other. This real diversification helped them make more money while lowering their risk of losing. As a result, their return-to-risk ratio was much higher than it had been before. Bridgewater's new fund, Pure Alpha, is based on these ideas. Even though the plan had never been put into action, some clients kept putting money into it. Since it began 26 years ago, it has made money in 22 of those years. This makes it the most successful fund ever. Idea 5. Systematic decision-making. Dalio's investment success came from his unique way of thinking and the fact that he put his criteria for making investment decisions into simple algorithms that computers could use. When he traded stocks, he saw the market as a group of parts that were all connected and had their own causes and effects. For example, the cost of making a t-shirt would depend on things like current fashion trends, the amount of water needed to grow cotton or other materials, and how rain affects these crops. Dalio thought that he could use this device as a model to predict prices. In the early 1980s, when Dalio was rebuilding Bridgewater, he used computers to turn his investment principles, a logical approach and careful study of past performance, into a set of rules that could be used consistently. This had many positive effects. Since computers could make trading decisions in real time, he could react to new situations more quickly without having to spend mental energy coming up with possible answers. In times of short-term swings that could make people buy or sell out of panic, computers help people be more logical and less influenced by their emotions. With the help of computers, we could easily and quickly gather a lot of information. Every country on Earth's financial information from more than a century ago was put into the system. By using this information, computers can backtest investment rules to show how well they worked in the past. Idea 6. Public work principles. Dalio carefully wrote down his beliefs and added to them as he learned more about other kinds of management. Some of them were about hiring, firing, and pay. Dalio told the leaders of Bridgewater about these guiding ideas and told them to test and improve them over time. By putting together a complete set of rules, managers never had to ask Dalio for advice on an unexpected problem at work. Over the course of a year and a half to 2 years, new hires learned the rules and got used to them. The principles made large-scale management possible by giving people with strong character and integrity a lot of freedom and trusting them to make good decisions. Idea 7. Record all meetings. Radical transparency, as CEO Ray Dalio calls it, is a key part of Bridgewater's culture. Everyone should be aware of how everyone else feels. When Bridgewater was a small town, this wasn't a problem. But as the company grew quickly, it became impossible for everyone to go to every meeting and hear every hallway conversation. This was a serious threat to openness at work, because private conversations and office politics could change the meaning of the message. In response, Dalio demanded that all meetings be videotaped and made available to anyone who wanted them. There were only 2 things that couldn't be talked about: private meetings and information that had to be kept secret. The ability to schedule a meeting made it easy to look back at why decisions were made in the past and gave important examples for teaching new employees. The ability to schedule a meeting made it easy to look back at why decisions were made in the past and gave important examples for teaching new employees. Idea 8. Psychological tests. Dalio says that there are many different ways people take in information and act on it. To get along well with your coworkers, you need to know what kind of person you are and what kind of person they are. Bridgewater uses psychometric tests like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator to learn more about the personalities of potential employees. The information will help the company figure out what jobs the applicants are best suited for. Idea 9. Detailed descriptions of traits. Dalio says that knowing a person's personality type isn't enough to understand them. In meetings, people would ignore each other's obvious personality differences and give jobs to people who weren't right for them. People who aren't good at paying attention to details, for example, may be given such work. Dalio started making personality profiles, which he called baseball cards. These cards listed the good and bad qualities of each employee, such as how curious, friendly, good at resolving conflicts, and assertive they were. He would look at personality profile information and the most important skills needed for each job to figure out who would be the best fit. At first, people were hesitant to share so much information because they didn't want to be misrepresented or limited by their profile. Over time, though, the Bridgewater crew found it freeing that they didn't have to lie about their problems and could just be honest about them. Idea 10. Using algorithms in management. Dalio plans to use the same level of automation for Bridgewater's management that he used for their investment process. He says that they still have a long way to go, but they have started to implement solutions, like an app that staff can use on their iPads to give each other real-time feedback during meetings. Some of the things they look for are knowledge, originality, and friendliness. As the app gathers these scores from multiple interactions, it can get a clear picture of who is most reliable in certain areas. Idea 11. Trust what is transparent and real. Keep in mind that being very honest and open may seem like more trouble than it's worth at first, but it will pay off in the long run if you do it. Don't be afraid of the truth, because it will set you free. This can only help you and your company. Integrity means telling the truth even when it's hard, and asking others to do the same can make the workplace much more stable. It is a cardinal sin to say bad things behind someone's back that you wouldn't say to their face. On the other hand, caring about others shouldn't make you give up your own values or hurt the organization as a whole. In an ideal situation, you'd create a place where everyone has the right to know why a decision was made, and no one can be punished for giving constructive feedback. No matter what, you should never try to make people more innocent. Even though honesty and openness are good traits, that doesn't mean they're the norm. You and your workers should know that lying is a normal part of life. The good news is that when everyone is open and honest, it's more likely that everyone will be held responsible for their actions, and justice can win. Even though being open should be the norm, it's important to know that there may be times when that's not possible. There are times when secrecy must be kept, when the company's survival is at stake, or when the benefits of revealing certain information would be outweighed by the trouble they might cause. You can choose which people get the information. You should only give sensitive information to people you can trust, who will use it wisely, and only give it to people who will do the same. It's not a good idea to give it to people inside or outside the company who could use it against it. Being honest and open in both business and personal relationships makes them stronger. In the long run, they help improve workplace productivity and morale. Idea 12. Give your daily activities and work a purpose. Your company culture will do well if you help your employees do work that matters and build relationships that matter. It helps team members keep the level of trust that is needed for their ideas to reach their full potential. This can be shown in a number of ways. The first is to always act honestly in service of the team's overall goal, and to never show favoritism to someone who acts in a way that goes against the team's stated values and standards of conduct. Keep in mind that most people only care about what's good for themselves. When their actions start hurting the business, you have to do something drastic. Rules and standards for your business should be written in a way that makes it clear what is and is not acceptable behavior. Make sure they know that being fair is different from being kind. Fairness means giving each person what they are worth. Kindness is not a right, but a privilege. You should tell your team members to care more about others than they do about themselves, and you should insist that they always take the fairer position. Always remember that as your company grows, it will be harder to keep the unique atmosphere and close bonds that have formed between employees. Recognize and thank the people who help you in your cause, even if you're not paying attention to them. To put it simply, they will always be your most trustworthy friends. Idea 13. Think carefully before you act. To reach a consensus, the group must learn how to weigh the contributions of each member. Recognize the value of others who have skills you don't have, instead of assuming you have the right to tell everyone how to do everything just because you are in charge. People with these skills usually have either tried and true results, they've done the thing in question at least 3 times, or a solid working theory with a clear cause and effect relationship in mind. There is always a way to test a theorist's theory and move on if the results are bad. Experience isn't always a good indicator of skill, so even if they fail, they might be able to use their method in another attempt. Remember that ideas and opinions are different. Ideas come from knowledge and experience, but bias can make it hard to evaluate someone's point of view objectively. If you find yourself in a situation where you have to talk to people who don't agree with you, try to understand why they think the way they do. The next step is to decide on your strategy, which could be to teach, look into, or argue. When you disagree with someone, you should always keep an open mind and a sense of modesty. Listen to the people who have told you that you are wrong. Don't be afraid to answer questions, because it's only fair that others hear your point of view. You should also try to improve your effectiveness. It's good that you want to see things from everyone's point of view, but you should also know when to stop talking. It's also okay to not evaluate everything. Don't waste time mentioning people who have nothing to do with the answer to your question. If you are a teacher, you should try to fit as many students as possible into one class. In the end, it all comes down to having a fair way to make decisions. This issue is more important than whether or not you are right. Idea 14. Resolve conflict correctly. Don't give up on your values just to find a solution to a problem. You should hold other people to the same standards of behavior that you hold yourself to. Everyone is fully responsible for how they act, so choose your battles carefully and always keep the big picture in mind when making decisions. If you can agree on the big picture, you shouldn't let small disagreements get in the way. Keep an open mind and think about the bigger picture as you talk about something. If meritocracy fails, don't let the mob rule without reason. Never try to avoid a problem, it must be dealt with straight on. Check the level of debate and how it's getting worse to see if a vote is needed. Once a fair decision has been made, everyone must back it, even if they don't agree with it. If your company's meritocracy starts to work against the company as a whole, everyone will lose. In these circumstances, putting in place martial law is not a bad idea. Be wary of people who say that the meritocracy should be stopped for the good of the organization as a whole. Most likely, they only care about themselves. Leaders must always follow the rules that have been set up, or else the whole system will fall apart. Idea 15. People must be held accountable. Don't forget that your team is what makes the whole company work. As a manager, the most important decision you will make is who will be in charge of the organization's goals, results, and machinery. The last person who did something wrong will have to pay for what they did. When everyone answers to a boss, this is what happens. Idea 16. Hire competent people. The most valuable part of any business is its people. When you hire people for your organization, they should all work well together, with each person contributing in their own way. Keep in mind the best traits, skills, and abilities when hiring, in that order. Use a methodical, scientific approach to hiring instead of just going with your gut. You shouldn't have to use your connections to help someone get a job. Choose people to interview who can help you narrow down your search criteria. Just like every person is different, Dalio's ideas are also different. Learn how to use and understand personality tests so you can get the most out of them. There is no silver bullet, and no one person has all the qualities needed to succeed. Instead, each member of the team needs to shine in their own way to help the group reach its goal. Team members will do well if they are in the right environment, but people don't change a lot after they are hired. You should instead look at their past work, talk to their references, and trust your own judgment. Even though experience and past performance are important, you should keep in mind that they are not the only things that matter. Someone's past successes at work are no guarantee of how well they will do in the future. Character, practicality, and skill are also things that people look for. You should think about how well they will get along with you and the rest of the team, as well as how qualified they are for the job. They will be working with you for a long time. Choose someone whose questions will make you think, but who is also a good fit for you. It's important not to hide your flaws or how you usually work, so you can see how much they care about you. When you decide how much to pay your employees, think about what their long-term plans are. Pay people based on who they are, not what they do, and tie pay to, at least some, measures of how productive they are. It's more important to have a big enough pie so that everyone gets their fair share than to divide it up so that you and other important people get a bigger piece. Even though fair pay is important, kindness and compassion are worth more in the long run. As a leader, you should always give, and you should expect others to do the same. The success of your team depends on this and other helpful ways of thinking. Idea 17. Test, train, and assess. During the time you work together, both you and your teammates will continue to grow as people. Because each person has learned what they are good at and what they need to work on, each step of the process should take very little time. As a leader, the training you give your team should help them grow rather than do it for them. Tell them to figure things out on their own and give them room to make mistakes that will help them learn. They will learn a lot more from their own experiences than from any lecture that could be given in a classroom. It will be up to you to help your team learn from these situations by giving feedback based on how closely, but not too closely, you watch their work. You and they both need to look at what you say and what they say with a healthy dose of objectivity. In the long run, they will learn more from honest criticism than from friendly criticism, so focus on being honest instead of being kind. Keep in mind that the other people on your team might not place the same value on these strengths and flaws as you do. It will be your job to make this clear through both constructive criticism and public recognition of the team's best work. Evaluation tools are a great way to get a full picture of how a team member is doing. You can even look at the evidence together as you argue. During an evaluation, one of the worst things you can do is be too sure of yourself. Check to see if someone isn't doing well because they don't have enough training, rather than inadequate ability. Ability tests are an important part of any training program because they show if the person can learn the material or not. One of the most common mistakes is to find something but not tell your team about it. Don't judge someone based on their social status. Instead, be honest and open with your team about your own mistakes and theirs. During this time, it's important to show support and understand that changes can be hard. This will also help you confirm your conclusions, since most employees won't agree with you if you give them an inaccurate rating. Throughout their time on the job, it's important to keep evaluating employees with the same care you use to evaluate prospects. Within a year, you should be able to figure out a person's character and whether or not they are right for a job. Let them try new things and learn from their mistakes, but be ready to help if things don't go well. If you follow this plan, you won't turn out to be a people collector. Don't lower your standards just to make other people happy. Even if a worker is very liked, they should be let go if they aren't helping the business succeed. Idea 18. Don't forget the machine point of view. Remember that your business is a huge machine that you are in charge of. That means you can't let yourself get sidetracked by the many problems you're facing and lose sight of the machine as a whole. You should take responsibility for what you do, and you should expect the same of your coworkers. Any results should be judged in light of the machine's ultimate goals, Tasks and goals are different, so keep that in mind, and should either directly help reach that goal or make the machine work better overall. Keep things in perspective by keeping a record of your organization's successes and failures and by reviewing past and present performance on a regular basis. When a problem comes up, it's important to look at what happened and figure out what went wrong, whether it was a simple mistake or something more serious, and then make things right. If this means that new rules need to be made, make sure you can explain why. Also, you should try to find a good balance in how you manage people. Being a responsible leader means taking credit for your team's successes and always learning more about your field and the people in it, so you can be a light for your team. If you want to know how involved you need to be and if you can give certain tasks to other people, you should regularly evaluate how much you trust your coworkers. If you want to help keep the team on track, it's important to know who's responsible for what and what they can do, even if they don't report to you directly. With management tools like daily updates, you can keep an eye on your team's progress and plan for problems. Always keep the lines of communication with your staff open and polite. They can talk to you about any problems they're having or responsibilities they can't handle on their own. They need to know that you care about their growth as people and want them to do well. Be honest when you ask questions and show that you're really interested in other people's work. You will learn how to help your team when you see patterns in how they work and how they think, which will become clear as you keep working together. Remove any weird threads that could cause employees to avoid doing their jobs or not deal with problems. In the end, there is more to being a leader than meets the eye. Don't give up, always think positively, and plan your life the way you think is best, even if that means going against what most people think. Your main goal should be to be understood, not to be followed or approved of. Idea 19. Handle your problems. As your machine does its work, keep a healthy level of worry about the worst-case scenario alive. This will help you evaluate your current results more accurately in relation to your goals, predict possible problems, and fix them at the right time with a well-thought-out solution. You can divide up the work by having other team members keep an eye on some of the new problems. If you want people to be able to do their jobs without worrying about what will happen to them, you should give them independent ways to report and a lot of chances to speak up. You should never take anything for granted. Each problem has the chance of putting the whole machine at risk. Also, be as specific as you can about each issue. Instead of saying we or they, be specific about the people you want to blame and demand that they do something. Idea 20. Look for problems. By asking these questions, you'll be better able to figure out what's wrong. 1. What was the goal of this machine, and what did it end up doing? 2. What caused the problem in the first place? Is it more likely that the bad thing happened because the machine was poorly made, or because the person who did it didn't have the skills to stop it? 4. Who is to blame, and what made it happen? 5. When judging the validity of a decision, look at what the person knew at the time it was made instead of what they know now. 6. Do you know how to do this better? Even if you know what the problem is, that doesn't mean you can fix it. Is this a problem with how well the person can handle things? 8. What is wrong with the machine, and why is it wrong? The Life Lessons 5-step plan will help you figure out where you went wrong in step 9. 10. Is the same problem always coming up? The 11th question is if any rules were broken or not. Next, we'll talk about how this change in responsibility should affect the people and technology in question in the future. When trying to figure out what's wrong, if you ask yourself these questions, you'll be well on your way to finding a solution. As a leader, it's your job to check on the organization's machinery on a regular basis. Figure out what's wrong, come up with solutions, and put them into action. This step is important for any business or group of businesses to run smoothly. Idea 21. Design better. In an ideal world, your guiding ideas would have been the engine of the machine you were building for your organization. Your other machines for making decisions will build on this main one to help you reach your goals and solve problems. Goals, not tasks, should be at the center of each machine, and they should be the responsibility of an independent, trustworthy, and knowledgeable person or group. These people are what makes your machine work, so the machine should be made to fit them instead of the other way around. As part of your plan, you will promote new workers and train them. If your staff has this information on hand, they can be better prepared in case you aren't there. Set up a system of checks and balances inside and between your groups to make sure that the best people for each job aren't pushed out and that dishonest people aren't given more power, especially when it comes to managing money. Before making any changes to this equipment, you should plan carefully, putting long-term goals ahead of short-term needs. You should be ready for any tests you might face, maybe even considering some potential machine alternatives. Don't forget that people aren't perfect and that mistakes will happen. Remember to look at them as things you can learn from. Getting advice from experts in the field can help with plans to make things better. Before making a final decision, you should think about the different views on quality assurance, cost-effectiveness, and security. Remember that it will take longer and cost more than you thought it would. It will be worth it if you use the right tools and methods. Idea 22. Maintain governance. All organizations that work well need a system of checks and balances to make sure that the most qualified people are in charge. It should be clear that there are these kinds of rules and how they fit into the big ideas. In particular, make sure that reporting lines and who has the power to make decisions are clear. To figure out how things will go, it's important to set up a lot of criteria. Even in a meritocracy, people can't get jobs based only on how good they are. Check the system by making sure that no one person, not even the CEO, is too important to be replaced. Any review of a team member should be done with as much knowledge and objectivity as possible. Okay, let's sum it all up. These are the main ideas of Principles, Life, and Work by Ray Dalio. Idea 1. Accept reality and know how to deal with it. Idea 2. The decisions you make now will have a direct effect on your life tomorrow. Idea 3. Think on your own. Idea 4. Learn from mistakes. Idea 5. Systematic decision-making. Idea 6. Public work principles. Idea 7. Record all meetings. Idea 8. Psychological tests. Idea 9. Detailed descriptions of traits. Idea 10. Using algorithms in management. Idea 11. Trust what is transparent and real. Idea 12. Give your daily activities and work a purpose. Idea 13. Think carefully before you act. Idea 14. Resolve conflict correctly. Idea 15. People must be held accountable. Idea 16. Hire competent people. Idea 17. Test, train, and assess. Idea 18. Don't forget the machine point of view. Idea 19. Handle your problems. Idea 20. Look for problems. Idea 21. Design better. Idea 22. Maintain governance. Love this book summary? Watch the full summary in our app. If you find that reading is becoming a chore, then you need Morfosis. Our app delivers key insights from nonfiction books in easy-to-digest animated summaries. With our 7-day free trial, there's nothing to lose. Get the knowledge you need without hours of reading. Start your free trial today by clicking the link in the description below.